is not working.
Yeah, it sounds good. We're good here, and I think we're going live. So, well, welcome everybody. This is our Freedom Week conversations that I'm privileged to have with some of my great friends, mentors, colleagues, running buddies, if you will. And today I'm really pleased to have Shaun McCloskey. Shaun, thanks for jumping in.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, one of the things I talk about, and I know this falls right in line with your life and what you've learned, and now what you teach and preach, I would say in a good way to other people, is the word freedom that we look at today. We think about our nation. We talk about the freedoms that our nation and our forefathers have brought to us today, but also personal freedoms, and how we are able to live our lives in a way that really is about freedom. And a lot of times today, we live in a world where we celebrate more convenience and comfort, often at the cost of control of our lives, which is what you've said many times before. It's like, is it all about the money, the wealth, building the capital base? And that's certainly a metric a lot of people look at. But what you'll say, Shaun, I'll say the same thing, is we're really looking at to live our life. Building a business or a construct or a career or whatever it is around our life. And you've had, like I have too, and many people that we know, we've gone through different iterations of our zeal for building. We like to build, right? We like to create. We want that independence. We want to make the money, and we have a lot of context through real estate, certainly. And back in the day, I think it was around 2007, you had one of those epiphanies or wake ups when you were also building like everybody else. And can you kind of take us back that far to like 2007? That's like 18 years ago, and what went through your mind, and what kind of shift you went through then?
Well, first of all, you just made me feel old saying 18 years ago. No, I'm good with that.
But you were like 10 back then. So,
it's crazy to think that was that long ago. But yeah, so I had a real estate business. We were flipping, maybe 60, 70 houses a year, depending on the year, and built up a big team. And, back then, my expenses to run the business were just starting to go up and up and up. And we were closing more deals, but we got to a place where, I don't know if you have worked with people you can relate with this or anybody listening, but we got to a place where we have to close deals every month because our expenses were high and we got payrolls and 17 employees and all this stuff. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but that was never a part of my vision. I was following a vision from a mentor that I had back then. And I was doing that because that was the path that I was told to get wealthy. And then once you're wealthy, then you can have it all. And so I was sacrificing a lot of life to build up this real estate business. And, the concept that was foreign to me was that the business is supposed to serve your life. And back then I was serving the business with all of my life. And so I'm working 70, 80 hours a week and, striving to close more deals because then we can make more money. And then someday when we do, then we'll be able to have the freedom and time to do all the stuff we want. The reality is that we could have had a lot more freedom than we had back then already. But I didn't have a vision for my own life. I was following, and I think this happens with a lot of people. You follow the advice of other people who don't have a life, and then you follow in their footsteps because it looks good. The mentor that I worked with back then was making a lot of money, but what I didn't know after working with him for 3 years is he was pretty miserable. And here I am following in his footsteps, building a business exactly the same way that he built his. And unfortunately, he ended up losing his family, and his son kind of disowned him. And it was a bad thing because he spent the majority of his life in work. And I got a pretty rude awakening when I saw that the guy that I looked up to the most really didn't have it all together like I thought. And so started making some major changes, got a vision for my life first, instead of just building the business first and then hoping someday life would come. And I said, I'm going to start living life at any expense. And I went a little bit bold with it. I made some massive changes within about 6 months. And within a year and a half, literally everything in my life changed, from the way I make decisions to the way I made money to the way I invested it or saved it or spent it. The time that I spent with family, how I structure my calendar, all of that started to change when I actually got a vision for my life. And that's a big deal. So around here, we teach, get a vision for your life first before you build a business. Or if you're already in a business, you need to press pause for a quick second, design what you want life to look like. And there's 11 different categories in that. Everything from your spiritual life to your health, to your family, to your love, to, your charitable, all of these things. If you can think these things through, and it's not easy work, but if you can spend the time to think these things through and put it in writing, then you can build a business that serves that at the same time. And it's not easy to do. It's simple. It's not easy to pull off. And what I found, especially back then, before I do what I do now, most people don't do that. And therefore, most people are enslaved to their businesses, enslaved to debt, enslaved to, obligations, their calendar that never ends, kids' basketball games and baseball games, and overcommitting. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with basketball games and stuff like that, but all of this stuff needs to be put into perspective. It needs to fit in with your vision. And if you don't have one, how in the world are you supposed to build a business to serve it if you don't even know what it is? So the bottom line is, I can sum it up in 4 words: life on your terms.
Yeah.
So what are your terms? If you don't know what your terms are, how in the heck are you supposed to build a business that serves those terms?
Totally. Well, having that vision and having it laid out very specifically, your terms, as you said, in all those categories, gives you a filter. And I look at it like every time I'm going to make a decision on anything, it's like, well, look at your vision. What did you lay out that was important to you? And is this decision that I'm potentially going to make, good, bad, or otherwise, does it fit within my vision?
Yes.
Then it becomes easier, not totally easy.
It's not easy still.
Right? Yeah. And the other piece too, I want to bring to the table, because this is where part of your bold vision, and you've taken what you've learned and you love to instill that in others. I mean, you're a leader of leaders. Being a part of your leadership boardroom, you have multiple iterations. I shouldn't say iterations, but you keep the groups small enough where there is transparency, there is trust, there is camaraderie, there's collaboration, there's vulnerability, which of all those, probably that maybe is the one that we have a hardest time with, is being vulnerable, because we're supposed to play the part that we thought we were playing. So many times we show up to these meetings, conferences, seminars, whatever they are, and everybody's just trying to look the part.
Of course.
And how can you really get real with yourself if everybody's playing a charade?
Yeah.
You can't.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, man, when you get in an environment where people are willing to be open and vulnerable, you find out, not everybody's life who looks really glamorous on the outside is quite as glamorous as it looks. It's kind of like the Facebook life. People don't post what they're struggling with most of the time. They post pictures of their vacations and their, all the fun that they're having with family and stuff. But the reality is that everybody has room to grow, and everybody's got some destination that they're not quite at yet. And then when you get there, you don't stay there very long. So you need to spend some time, figure out what that looks like, and then hang out with other people who can help you get there, but really hold you accountable to your own vision. And that's not easy, that's right. So that's what we do around here. We teach people how to have vision, then teach people how to design their life according to it. And then, so there's 3 components to this, I should mention. You got personal vision, you got business vision for the company, and then you got your role within the company. And so if you can get all 3 of those to line up, you love life. And that doesn't mean you're never going to have problems. You're not going to have a day where you wake up and, you're woe is me. But it means that more often than not, you are excited. Your life is getting you out of bed instead of you forcing yourself to get out of bed, if that makes sense.
As somebody steps up, raises their hand as you're speaking, however they heard you. You speak a lot of places. You're out there in the field. A lot of people know you, and run across people who are in that area of their life where it's not fun, it's not exciting, it's not fulfilling in so many different directions, and so they come to you and maybe even enter the realm of leadership boardroom, which is what I've enjoyed for many years, and they first come, and there's probably, maybe even like I had a little bit of that too, I probably did. There's a little bit of, I'm coming here, I've heard it's all good, but there's this kind of, I'll sit back with my arms folded for a little while and just kind of watch and see what's been how have you, I know you can't win everybody over, but how do you take that person who's like, okay, prove it, pal, because you're telling me I can have all this and I haven't seen it. Part of it's social proof in the room, because you've got people who've been down the road. So you can look around, okay, well, they seem like they're kind of like me and they've actually made some steps. So that's good. But in a results driven world where it's all about results and multiples and EBITDA and revenue and profits, and how do you help shift that mindset and have people take that really a bold move? Because you can't just like chip away a little bit at a time. You've got to actually come in and say, okay, I'm gonna stake my claim here. I'm gonna talk about my vision. I'm gonna actually do this. Is there a key to getting people to see that vision and actually grasp it?
Yeah, well, first of all, some people are more visionary centered than others. Like the way I describe it is Disney runs their operation with everybody in Disney works in one of three categories. You're either a visioneer or a imagineer, I should say, or you're an engineer or you're an implementer. And, the visionaries think of the great ideas, the engineers design them and put them together, and the implementers make them happen, right? So that's the way Disney does it. And when I learned that years ago, I found that most people gravitate towards one of those as their home. And that doesn't mean you can't be all three, but as an entrepreneur, we're expected to be all three. Visionary, we got to see the future. We got to have the great ideas. We got to know how to make it, turn it into an engineered project. And then we got to either have a team to put it together. We got to put it together. So some people are visionaries and they embrace this process easier and faster because it comes more natural to them. Engineers tend to not do this. Engineers want the vision sort of figured out, and then they'll just figure out how we're going to make this work. And then the implementers don't really want to hear anything about it. They're like, just give me the recipe and show me what to do so I can make more money. And so, but when you get all of these three different types of people in a room together and they're at similar business experiences, the new ones start to see not only from the leader how it's impacted me, because this whole process has massively changed my life, but they get to see the results of the other people that have been around for a little while too. And so, everybody comes in with their guard up at first because it's really difficult to be vulnerable in a room with a bunch of strangers for your first meeting. And it's also difficult to take advice that goes against the grain of what you may have heard elsewhere, but fits your vision. And when they start seeing it and they start seeing the results that other people have had and it's real, they come around pretty quick. Some of them not so quick. Some of them take 6 months or a year to actually buy in. And the longer they wait, the longer it's going to take. But, the faster they buy in, you'll get it.
Yeah, totally. I'm going to just insert right now on behalf of people listening, best place to connect with you, leadershipboardroom.com.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So I'll put it out there. Also, for those of you who have been following my conversations like I'm having today with Shaun this week and enjoying some of that, we've got a resource, really a box of a lot of resources. One of them is a book I wrote with Dan Kennedy, one of my mentors a few years ago, Own Your Freedom. I thought was appropriate for this week since it's Independence Week. But if people want to just go to CelebrateFreedomWeek.com, and I think Alex can put that up there, CelebrateFreedomWeek.com. There it is. You can go there, and it's free. There's no catch, no strings, nothing. It's just we're just honoring our nation's celebration this week, and also celebrating your freedom, where you're striving for freedom, because it's an ongoing. You never reach it, and without having to maintain it, right, Shaun? You got to come back and reassess and be accountable to come back and measure, because it's easy to get off track. So easy to get lulled back into the results-driven process. Another direction I want to go here today, Shaun, is almost exactly 3 months ago. 3 months ago in a day. Let's put it that way. April 1st. You found yourself, I guess you woke up and found yourself in the emergency room or ICU. This was you shared, a lot of us who know you, we were just praying for you because we heard this news that you ended up there. Why don't you give us a little bit of that and how that experience has changed you, obviously where you are and how you recovered from that, but give us some color.
Well, the craziest thing happened. I was, forgive being so blunt, I went pee at 3:00 in the morning, and from there on out, I don't know what happened. Somehow I blacked out. And no, for those of all of you that asked me on Facebook, I wasn't drinking and I wasn't on drugs. Thank you very much. They don't know why it happened, but I was in a bathroom that had a hard travertine floor. And when I passed out straight backwards and landed directly on the back of my head. Blew the back of my head open and ended up in the ICU for a little over 3 weeks after that with 2 brain surgeries, and they had to drain all the swelling out of my head. It was a really bad situation. My sister-in-law and brother, who have a medical background, they were like, he's going to be okay, I'm pretty sure. But everybody else, including me, wasn't sure. And so, it does a couple things to you. First of all, it puts life into perspective real fast, because for 3 weeks I was in the hospital. And then for about another month and a half after that, I couldn't drive, couldn't work, couldn't really do a whole lot of leaving the house or anything. I am back to normal, whatever you call it, normal, as of like the last 2.5 weeks or so. But, they cut a big, huge thing in the side of my head. It's pretty crazy. But The cool thing about that is what we teach around here at Leadership Boardroom. I coach a lot of entrepreneurs. I have coaches on my team that coach. All of my team stepped up and ran everything while I was gone. And I literally did nothing for 2 months and a week. And everything when I came back was running just as smoothly as when I left. And I owe that to my team in a really, really big way. There's so many generous people that reached out and offered to help, which we had plenty of. It was just amazing. People are unbelievable. But put things into perspective real quick, because I just turned 50 in January. My father was the type of guy who was in the military for 20 years, and he was a hard worker. He was not afraid of hard work at all. Very, very military. He retired as a major in the Army and very disciplined. But he always had this delayed gratification for life, where if you work hard now, then we'll have a great life later. And in like Christmas Day, 1999, my dad died at 53 years old, and we never got to do most of the things that he had on his bucket list. And I mean, we took a vacation every 3 or 4 years, something like that. And you know, if that didn't put things into perspective enough back then, having something like this happens, oh my gosh, you know. But the cool thing is that when you are actually living your vision, and by the way, don't hear me bragging like, oh, I'm the perfect example of it. As I get closer to it, my vision changes, and I have more work to do and maintenance to do. And it's an ongoing journey. This is not like, you know, you get fit by going to the gym once. This is an ongoing thing. But because I've done the work like that, the team was just amazing. They stepped in and handled some things. And if worst case scenario happened, not that I want to leave this earth at all tomorrow, but I'm living it. And there's something to be said about, if something like that were to happen, not to leave this earth with 60 pages of regrets and things that you never got to experience and people that you never got to say I love you to or I'm sorry to. And that's a pretty big deal. So it was the first time I realized that how really, truly how much this has impacted me. When the doctor came in and had me sign the forms asking, do I want to resuscitate during the surgery if I die? It's a pretty big wake-up call, you know. But most people don't realize the importance of vision until they get a wake-up call like that. So I'm hoping that the audience that hears this today do some work. And to get started with it, it's very simple. You just sit down with a piece of paper and you say, if life could look any way I wanted it to look, and I didn't have to engineer it right now, I just get to dream it, how would it look for health? You know, how would it look for my relationship with my spouse? How would it look with my relationship with my kids, if you have any, or if you have a spouse, and if you don't, how would that relationship with a spouse look, right? How would your charitable life look, if that's important to you? You know, you can sit down and just start to write it out, and you don't have to spend 6 months doing this. When I first started doing this, I would spend just 1 day a week. My wife and I would go to breakfast on Thursday mornings, and we would say, we're going to work on our vision from the time we ordered breakfast to the time breakfast comes, because I don't want to get overwhelmed by it. And that's all we did. And over time, just a little bit each week, that might have been 10 or 15 or 20 minutes until breakfast came. First of all, we got a good excuse to go to breakfast. Second of all, we got to work on the vision stuff, and pretty soon it became clear. And then you can engineer it. See, people think, as an entrepreneur, people are trying to vision and engineer at the same time.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work that way. Matter of fact, Disney doesn't allow the engineers and the Imagineers to be in the same room at the same time ever when they're exploring new ideas. And the reason that they don't allow that is because the engineers, in their let's figure out how to pull this off brain, are poo-pooing all over the ideas of the Imagineers. And so if that happens enough times, guess what happens to the Imagineers? They stop dreaming. And that's what you and I do every single day in business, because there's times when it's appropriate to be each one of these things, but not while you're dreaming. So just sit down and just start dreaming a little bit. You know, most people have never been given permission to even dream to that extent. And I'm telling you, when you get it out of your head and get it in writing, even if you do nothing else from there, I've seen lives completely changed. And I mean, in less than a year, I've seen lives totally change when you just get it out of your head and get it in writing. Start with that.
Well, we allow so many of societal's, I call them constraints,
Yeah.
almost directives, right? This is the way you do it. To your point, if you want to be this, that, or even going down a technical career with academia, nothing wrong with that. But it's always, well, this is how it's done. Here's how you need to play ball with your life in your career. Here's where you need to go. Here's the steps you take. It's always outlined out there in front. And I love what you said about not trying to get it all done right away. That's our tendency. Okay, well, I'm going to take this on now. So now I got to do this vision in one day. Well, don't try to do that. It's the compound effect of iteration, over time. Just those short conversations with your spouse, whoever's important in your life, your spouse would be definitely right there. Having those conversations just to start it, because you've got to break the inertia. Yeah. And if you're like me, and many people are, or like you, Shaun, in our poor behavioral days, and we still have to work on this, is my tendency is, well, I'm not going to start something until I've got it all perfected. Yep. Well, it's never perfect. Nothing's ever. In fact, until you start making some movement forward, you're not going to have anything that's going to come out of that. You're just going to sit there in analysis paralysis forever. And that's why being a part of a group that's well facilitated, like you've done for many years now, is that group is not going to let you do that.
Yeah. Well, here, one of the things that we do around here too is I try to encourage everybody, and I do this myself. I rewrite my entire vision, all personal, all business, all of my roles within the business, and I rewrite it from scratch every year, at least once a year. I recommend twice a year. Mm-hmm. Because as you get closer to it, things will change. Things that you thought you wanted a year ago may not be as important today as you thought they were. So that's going to change. You'll hit milestones that you may not have even thought you'd hit within a year. And so as you get closer to those, some of your dreams will get bigger. Some of your dreams will go, I didn't want that as much. So we tweak this stuff all the time. And it's important to not only redo it every once in a while, but also to plan from within it. So here's an example of that. This is something that a mentor of mine taught me a long time ago that really, really changed my life. He said, once your personal vision's done, let's pull out a pretend weekly calendar and let's start applying the things that you say are important to you into this pretend calendar. And let's see how long it takes just to live your life if you're living it how you want to live it. And you start putting things in there like, I want to have dinner every night with my kids, and I want to have quiet time just to read, or, I'd love to go play tennis once a week, or I'd love to just ride my motorcycle here and there. The idea is not to get a perfect calendar or a perfect day. The idea is to see, if I was living my vision, how much time does it take? And I'm going to fill you in on a little clue here. I don't normally tell people this until they come to one of our 3-day events we teach, but I've done this now with thousands of people, and I've seen their calendars filled out. When people fill out their calendars, now notice I didn't put the business vision in there yet. I didn't put work in yet. I put all personal vision stuff in first. And when you look at people's calendars, I can tell you they don't have left over 40 or 50 or 70 hours a week. No one does. On average, they have between 22 and 32 hours a week left to work. So if you're working 40 hours a week, 50 hours a week, 60 hours a week, I can promise you something in your vision, in your personal life, is getting pushed far to the wayside. And here's what I say to people, like, if you're going to do that, which you don't have to do to build a business, by the way, but if you're going to do it, at least consciously choose what's going to go to the wayside. Otherwise, you wake up one day 5 years from now and you have no relationship with your kids and you don't know why. It's because all of that time you said that you wanted to spend with them, that it, like if your vision said, I want to be a good father, well, how many hours a week does that take? Mm-hmm. Well, at least take a guess and put it in your pretend calendar, because if not, you'll fill it up with work. You wake up 5 years later and you go, why don't I have a relationship with them? Well, it's because you had no time invested in that area. Why does my health look bad? Because I have no time invested in that area at all. Why am I stressed to the gill? Because I don't have any quiet time anymore. Everything in my calendar is booked up back to back. And so 22 to 32 hours a week is not much according to society's view of how often you should work. As a matter of fact, most entrepreneurs, if they only work 30 or 32 hours this week, they feel guilty.
That's right. Exactly.
So no one said that you have to work 40 hours a week or more. No one said, actually, Henry Ford said that, but you didn't say. That's Henry Ford's vision, by the way, from more than 100 years ago. So give me a break, man. Get your own.
Take it from Henry. Yeah, it's kind of like a lot of the constructs that we've been told to believe, like the food pyramid when we were growing up.
Yeah, right.
We'll throw that out because it was code to life. Well, same thing as like the industrial age said, well, work 40 hours a week in the factory.
Yep.
So we think, well, that's what we do. And to your point, entrepreneurs say 40, that's nothing. Come on. You're not hustling if you're not doing 60 or 70. So
yes,
something wrong with you. And we paint ourselves in these corners thinking I'm guilty.
Well, and the other one too, real quick, is, work your butt off until you can retire.
Yeah.
And then those are going to be the golden years. And unfortunately, well, here, a couple of problems with that. Number one, that's assuming that you're going to retire. Look, I coach a lot of entrepreneurs that have no desire to retire because they love what they do.
Yes.
Now, they don't do it 70 hours a week, but they love what they do. Also, my dad didn't make it to retirement. He's 53, he's dead. So there's that. And then if you're just waiting for retirement in order to have a life, something's really wrong with that. And I've coached many people over the years that are like, man, I got 9 more years and then I get my pension. I'm thinking, you're selling your soul for 9 more. You already sold it for 20 something.
Right.
Now you're going to sell it for 9 more years just so you can get a paycheck. You can get that building a business within a year or two.
Right.
Give me a break, come on.
Exactly. Shaun, you've always been very open and authentic about your spiritual life, your faith, which we all know you really appreciate that because you walk the talk. And one thing I know you said, and it might have been in a text or maybe something you put out to all of your friends after you got out of the hospital, out of ICU, you said your mindset shifted from asking God, why did you allow this to happen to me? Instead saying, God, thank you for doing this for me.
Yeah.
That's a different way of looking at adversity. Why don't we just kind of end on that? But what would you say? Because we're all going to go through some difficult times in life, and how should we look at those? Are these wake up calls that we should look a little bit harder at?
Man, there was actually 3 stages to that. When I first had the accident, I was saying, God, why did you do this to me? Mm-hmm. And then that shifted to why did you allow this to happen when I was in the hospital? And then after I got out, when you have a traumatic brain injury, there's some really weird side effects. One of them was that for about 3 or 4 weeks after I got home, I would burst into tears, and it could be 5 minutes or it could be 2 hours. And that could happen once today, or it could happen all day. It was the weirdest. And I didn't even know that was going to take place until I went back for my follow-up visit, where they reminded me that they told me that in the hospital. And I had no memory of it at all. So, but in that time, it was like, it was, I don't know how any other way to say this. It was revealed to me, I still got a lot of work to do, man. It was revealed to me people that I had hurt. I had thought I was living a lot of my vision. In certain areas, I really was doing a great job. And there's also areas that I failed miserably. And I think I even got myself to a point where, so much of the time as an entrepreneur, you need this nice little balance of operating in your head versus your heart. Mm-hmm. And what I realized after the accident is I had been operating in my head a lot more over the last year or so. And the best way to describe this, I would say the accident and that crying situation, which was so odd, it got me completely out of my head and back into my heart. And when that happens, you start to get grateful for things that you don't even pay attention to, like sunshine anymore. And you start realizing there's some friendships, some deep friendships that I need to pay more attention to. And there's still a few more I'm sorry's I need to say. There's things that I have done that I'm not real proud of that still need repair. And I really do think this is why this is an ongoing process. You've never just arrived, and that's okay. So many people are striving and saying, one day when I get here, then everything will be great. Try to make it great today. And that's really hard to do. I know that everybody's going to have bad days. But the idea behind that is to live as much of this as you can. And really, I say life on your terms. It's really life. You get to choose life on your terms. But if you can align that with what God has got in store for you, that's pretty cool too. And that's another little area. You have a wake up call like this and you go, God, if I saw you tomorrow, would you really say well done, good and faithful servant? I'm not too sure. I still got some things to do. And by the way, that doesn't mean that you get into heaven by your works. I'm not suggesting that at all. But There's still work to be done. And
Yeah.
yeah, so better to have that experience through a traumatic brain injury than not. But you don't have to have that situation happen to start appreciating what's all around you a little bit more and start taking a little more quiet time and saying those I'm sorry's or I love yous, and just encouraging people with a kind word here and there. They're starving for it.
Absolutely. Well, Shaun, you're an inspiration to so many. I know to many of us who followed your lead and been in your mentorship and just your total influence. I know your community, your family, your church, everybody who's around you. We learn from each other, and you're just a person we all appreciate, who just steps up and says, "Here's what it is. Here's my life, full exposure, and if I can teach you something, here I am." So, Shaun McCloskey, leadershipboardroom.com. And again, if you want some additional resources for this week of independence, go to celebratefreedomweek.com, and we've got some things there for you as well if you'd like. So, Shaun, man, we've been praying for you.
Oh, thank you, man. They worked, because I feel great now. Thanks a lot, man. Happy 4th of July to you and everybody here listening.
All right. Same to you.
See you guys.
Take care, brother.